this is Jeannie from Paws Acupuncture, and I thought today I'd like to share a video that's from an Udemy online class that I did about in 2020, treating allergies and asthma with alternative medicine. Now this class was specifically for humans. However, the information can be applied to dogs, but it is a little bit more esoteric and complicated than just diagnosing a dog with emotions and allergies and asthma and things like that. But however, since this past couple weeks have just been filled with horrible, sad and shocking news, I thought it would be important to share how emotions impact us physically and mentally. Enjoy.
In this section, we will cover traditional Chinese medicine, its organs, and how emotions affect the organs and the body. There's a big difference between Western medicine and traditional Chinese medicine when it comes to emotions. Western medicine treats emotions pretty much as a reaction between the brain and emotions. So if you have a psychological problem, or you're depressed, or you have various other emotions, you would usually go to a doctor, a psychiatrist, a therapist, or even maybe your own doctor would give you some medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, things like that. But you'd be encouraged to talk to someone like a therapist or a psychiatrist about your problems, depending on how severe they are. And that's a good thing. If you do have those problems, you do want to be in touch with those types of people. In traditional Chinese medicine, though, the emotions not only affect the brain and are not really considered a psychological problem, they also affect the entire body and the organs. And the Chinese believe that emotions can be the cause of some diseases too. So here are the emotions in traditional Chinese medicine. There's anger, which would include things like irritability, animosity, bitterness. You know those people. Now, joy. Joy is not a healthy state of happiness in traditional Chinese medicine. The meaning of joy in this context is that it's excess excitement, a little bit too excited, too mentally stimulated, perhaps someone that's acting a little crazy, beyond normal. There's worry and pensiveness, sadness and grief, fear, and fear may lead to chronic anxiety, especially in children, and shock, which usually affects the heart. And shock usually affects the heart in Western medicine as well. Each organ has its own emotion, which is very helpful when I'm doing a diagnosis on a human patient. It's very difficult for an animal, but for a human patient, it helps out so much. So anger is related to the liver. Joy is related to the heart. Sadness and grief is related to the lungs. And dealing with grief and sadness will be covered in more detail in a separate section, since we are dealing with asthma and allergies, which are main lung symptoms in Chinese medicine. So we'll have a special section on that. Worry and pensiveness is spleen. Spleen people love to worry. I don't think they really love to worry, but they're just always worried. Kidneys is fear. And unfortunately, children who are brought up in fear or have fearful situations usually grow up to have some kind of chronic anxiety disorder or underlying fear all the time. And shock is heart.
Grief and sadness and how it impacts the lungs is discussed in much more detail in the online class. However, basically speaking, grief can impact the lungs in so many different ways. You may notice that after you lose someone you love, or there's a death in the family, or a horrible breakup, or a divorce, or you lose a pet, or things like that, things that cause grief and sadness. Some people get sick. Some people come down with pneumonia. have horrible asthma attacks, lung conditions, bronchitis, maybe the flu with breathing problems, things like that. It does impact the lungs in several ways. For people and in animals as well, you may notice that pets who lose family members may have trouble breathing or have some lung issues during that time as well.
So during an intake with a new patient, I'll question them about their emotions to see if I can pinpoint what's really going on with a better TCM diagnosis. So for instance, if someone's always worried and they worry about everything, every little thing, I would consider that person to have some kind of spleen deficiency. So perhaps the herbs and diet I recommend would be more like spleen tonics for this person. For someone who's always angry or irritable or cranky, that would be a liver thing, liver chi stagnation, as we like to say. And I won't go into the details of that. But, so that person, you'd want to give them herbs that kind of like calm them down, move that liver chi, that stuck energy, foods that are more calming, an acupuncture session that moves the chi out. For lungs and grief, we'll talk about that in a different section, but I would do different points on that person to help relieve that grief and maybe recommend some foods and herbs for that as well. So it's a very complicated thing, but it does help when doing an intake to figure out what organ is really causing a lot of the problems underlying the person's physical symptoms as well.
It's only human nature for us all to have emotions and experience pain and anger and fear and grief and maybe even too much joy, though I don't know anyone that has that. So my only advice is try to relax more, be nice to yourself and others, turn off the news, take a break from it, go into nature, hug a tree, cuddle with your pets, and enjoy and savor every precious moment of life. Thanks so much. For more information on holistic pet services, barking Zoom consultations, online classes, and books for people and pets, visit the Four Paws Acupuncture website, fourpawsacupuncture.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a pawsome day.